Yeah, Kash.
Hello?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, let's give folks a couple more minutes to see if anybody else will join.
Sure, sounds good.
Sajid just accepted, so maybe he'll join. He's been out sick. Okay. Are you able to see the screen, Kash?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. Might be a short meeting. I think one of the things that I wanna, so as far as we can go through like the status of the current pull requests, and then just basically skim through the milestones to see if there's any. No, there's big chunks of work going with your HA work and cell rotation and the RIGO policy support. So I think those are going to be the bigger themes for the next release. But
Yep.
Let's see if there's any like items that we need to take other than that.
Sure. Yep.
Okay, so let's let me go to the pull requests. So Bin updated the docs. Let's see where we're with this. So you approved the changes.
Yeah, this was just a simple replace of the version in the documentation, so it looks good to me. Yeah.
Okay, I see. Yeah, okay. Well, let's merge this one. Min is joining. Let's see. Hello, Min. Hello, Min. So this
Hello.
one should we just like, I think all the checks have passed. Should just squash and merge.
Yeah, I think it should be good. Yep.
Okay. Let's go back to the pull requests. So Min, unfortunately we will probably not discuss the logo today because this iteration of the meeting is too early for folks in Shanghai,
Yeah.
which I know Feynman and Yi are sort of, and Toddy are driving the discussion. So maybe we can include you in the agenda for next week.
Okay, sounds good.
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
Okay, yeah. See you next week then.
Thank you, Min.
Yeah, thank you. Bye. Bye.
Bye. Okay, so serve rotation will present. I think you might want to get more folks on this one. So with this one, we could potentially do it the Monday or Wednesday, or you can present next Wednesday when everybody is around.
Sure. I think so. Next Monday is a holiday, so we'll probably
that's
skip.
right.
Yeah, we'll skip the PR review. But next Wednesday, I'll plan on bringing it up and chatting about it.
Sounds good.
Yep.
And then For the unification of caches, are you waiting for any? Okay, so you're still waiting for.
Yeah, so I think based off of our review on Monday, I'm gonna address some comments, and then I'm just having discussions with some other people regarding the some of the security concerns we had, and the collaboration with Gatekeeper on Redis. So I'll get to those hopefully later this week. I'm kind of prioritizing the cert rotation work to make
Yeah,
sure we can
makes
get
sense.
at least the first part in RC5. And
Right.
then next week I am going to be busy on call as well. So
Yeah, did you end up branching RC4?
yes, so RC4 was has its own branch now. Yeah, that's
Got it. I see. So then maybe something to consider is to include maybe get another bill with RC4 that includes the cert rotation part.
sure. Yeah, I think we might have to discuss. So would we do like an RC 4.1, or would it be? I think that's probably what we'd have to do.
Yeah. Yeah, let's discuss offline. But yeah, the thing that worries me is if we need a stable, we need to start stabilizing the RC4. So I feel like the RC5 is going to include a lot of churn that we might not need for some internal purposes. But let's discuss.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Okay. So this one needs you need some work. This short one basically 1.10 to 1.
So this was the image spec upgrade based off of the OCI working group.
Oh, we need to wait for ORA's annotation. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're getting close to releasing, so we could probably queue this up in the next few weeks. But yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
I see. So this one will wait. And then this one, Bin was also very close. We reviewed his PR on Monday. Sorry, before. So I think he just needed to add some coverage.
Yeah, I think he's addressed all the comments. I'll ask him if he needs another final review. I can give that.
Right. Okay. Yeah, this one we can just follow up with Bin. Okay. So yeah, and then that's all the open pull requests. And then hey Sajay, so unfortunately these 1 p.m. meetings are getting a lower quorum. We have them to support contributors in North America that might be in the East Coast or somewhere else, but typically we're seeing low quorum on these ones.
Makes sense. I think this is also trial and error, right? We kind of like tried this, and if it doesn't work, we'll kind of like reschedule accordingly. The other thing is, if you want to do sometime that is before the notary call, that might also be a good time slot because people can then kind of like come if needed. We can talk about that as well. Yeah, there was another point I wanted to discuss, which is with the did we maybe talk to Josh Daphne about any feedback on things that we need to do for the experience here?
Did we talk to Joshua?
Yes.
No, so far the only conversations we've had with him. I think Akash might have some more insight here because he recently helped him with his presentation. Akash, do you know if he provided any feedback?
So he hasn't provided concrete feedback, but I think we should follow up on that. He's created the whole Terraform script to automate the entire Azure flow, and he did run into some issues which I helped troubleshoot, just some user error issues, not any bugs on our side per se, but I'm sure he probably has more feedback on what we should improve that way.
I find
Yes.
user errors are the most exciting thing to go fix, because that's harder to fix. It's because it's not specific, right? Might be either systemic on how we do it, or maybe some defaults that can help these things along the way. Okay, so maybe we can follow up separately on that, and then do a couple of things. And Toddy is
Maybe we-
also going to do a presentation, right?
So maybe one of the topics on the agenda for next week, Akash, since you're going to drive this one, would be inviting Joshua and Toddy to provide what they've heard from customers, or what Joshua has. Maybe a good topic to bring.
Sure,
Address
yeah.
any pain points that they see from customers, or like feature requests, asks. It's a good point.
I think off the top of my head, his main feedback was regarding just the whole certificate, dealing with the cert store, all the things that you have to implement. And then when there are different errors and sort of auth to the cert store, bubbling those errors up and understanding where they're actually coming from. So that's where a lot of the confusion was. So.
Okay, yeah. Might be good to, well, can add some issues there to prioritize. But yeah, that's a good point, Sajay. So yeah, maybe we should bring, or have them bring some of the feedback they also heard from customers.
Maybe. Yeah, thanks. Maybe another thing is to sometimes introduce tooling into either the CRD or into like Ratify, something that customers can run that'll help diagnose these things during configuration, right? And getting the feedback, if it's about, okay, are you able to configure the right search? And if it's a no, can you do a test verify? Or that can give you all the errors that you want, or test config or something like that. I don't know what a good solution would be, or what the standard practice is for other CRDs. Maybe just look at, maybe we can find out some patterns that we could implement. And might be small tooling improvements that'll help these workflows along.
Right. Okay. All right, so moving on the agenda, we went through the open items. So Akash and I discussed we will go through his server rotation proposal on the next one instead of this one to get more eyes on it. And then I think I want to just basically look at the currently if there's like any issues or things that we will need to prioritize for RC5. So far we have server rotation, we have the RIGO policy support, and we have the initial HA implementations as the big themes for RC5. Let's look at the issues that are up and see if there's any like bugs or things we need to address as well.
So, I mean, given that HA is a hard one. So, I think I'm just trying to figure out, like, we want to do a monthly release, but we don't want to kind of like have everything implemented in a month, but we do want to lay some ground, like foundation work, right? So how do you want to tackle this in such a way that the next RC might or might not have HA, and we could probably even plan 2 RCs out for it to be complete, but make sure that we don't drop things like core coverage and whatnot. Do you see my concern? I don't think HA will come in one or next
No,
couple.
right. So I think that we've discussed some of this coming as experiment, like using an experimental flag, like for instance, Bin introduced his whole like RIGO policy in order to provide backwards compatibility. with as a feature flag. So basically, you literally have to set the flag in order to support. So for the HA code, we might want to set up something similar. Cash?
Yeah, we could do that. The other way I was thinking of tackling it was that we would kind of add the code, but use that not as the default value. So we have two existing, we have Ristretto, which we use already, and the new code is adding the Ristretto implementation as well. So I was thinking we would just default to that as the cache provider, and then as we are introducing more documentation and ironing out the HA story, we can discuss like switching the default values to that, if that works. Or we could even add a feature flag so that any of the Redis provider is feature flag backed, so that you can't even select a different type.
Yeah, I'll give you some, I can maybe share some learning we had from notation. The people are beginning to kind of like rally around anything guarded by experimental is subject to change. So you can potentially yank off things. Between RCs, we expect them not to break. So let's say you do introduce a flag and a provider like AKS decides to pick up that flag for some reason, right? And because it's there. And then if a customer configures that, they will not be able to remove that. So I think guarding everything behind some kind of an experimental flag will ensure that even if the feature is enabled, it's not going to work, because you just have no option of turning that on in any of these code paths. And that might be so keeping the value there is definitely beneficial, but enforcing that somebody needs to turn this on manually in your hand-rolled cluster is probably the best option for now. We went through this, for example, in notation. We agreed that we wouldn't even touch the referrers API until the client actually enables experimental, because the OCI APIs are not released yet. So if you do release a flag, if you want to rename the flag or change it, just make sure it's behind some feature flag that indicates that this will change over the course. I think that's the learning that we had with auras and notation. But besides that, yeah, that sounds good to kind of start getting the code in, and then as long as it's guarded with something that is very obvious that, yeah, this is not for the faint-hearted to try and roll it into their production cluster or anything like that.
Sounds good. I think that makes sense. So I'll introduce a Redis experimental flag. And so even if you provide a Redis value in the Helm chart, if you don't have that flag enabled, it's not going to do anything.
Do we have like a global flag for these kind of things? Like just call it Ratify _ experimental or something like that, that you can put all these features that we don't feel are ready for prime time behind?
I don't think we have a unified flag. We just have it set up to be each feature would have its own flag.
Right.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, the other thing, so I think Akash has also been in touch with the Gatekeeper team to make sure that we also join efforts in terms of using the same Redis. One of the things that it might be interesting to do here is, given that Redis might be like a subject of security attacks, or like there might be ways to sort of poison the cache. I do kind of want us to push for a good security review, or like just have more eyes in the implementation of Redis with people that have more experience here. So I think we cover some of that conversation in Monday's.
So one other interesting, just out there idea was that with talking to Gatekeeper and how they're setting up their Redis instance, they're using Dapper as a intermediary between, so that they can actually technically work with any sort of message broker. It doesn't have to be Redis, it could be Memcache, it could be any other sort of provider. I don't know if we're at the point where we want to use Dapper for that. It might complicate things because of all the sidecar containers that it brings, but it also is a good way to be flexible. So just an idea, if anyone has thoughts on that.
Yeah, I don't have anything. Okay.
Hey, I'm sorry, Akash. I totally was multitasking. I totally missed what you were asking.
No, I would just, one idea I had was, so Gatekeeper is using Dapper as their integration point with Redis. So they don't actually manage the message broker provider. So they plan on using Redis as the default provider that they're going to recommend, but because they're using Dapper in between, they could actually work with any sort of message broker. So it could be Memcache, it could be Redis, it could be whatever. I don't know if we want to look into using Dapper too, as to be like kind of like our shim between whatever provider we want to use, or if we're going to be like, okay, let's just use Redis from now on. So I don't know if we're at the point where we want to even consider that. So.
Okay, you're not the first person who's actually brought up this very same discussion. So it's one context I can probably add to this is, if you can have Dapper handle the multipod scenario to actually get better HA, I think it might be a feasible prototype. So let's see if we can maybe investigate a little bit more and see if it actually makes sense to you, because it gives more than not just a Redis packing store, right? It's about state at that point in time. So if you feel like the abstraction will help you with not having to write the whole replica set state management portion of it, then yes. The other thing is, if we were to actually model the manifest store and the blob store on top of Dapper, you could use the same underlying implementation. Is that where you were going?
Yeah, so we could do it for both. We could do for our current in-memory cache base, we'd use Dapper, and then for the our PVC store, we could also potentially use Dapper. And the other nice thing about Dapper is that it controls all of the service communication, so we don't have to worry about adding MTLS or anything like that.
Yeah. Okay. So. Yeah, I think I'm almost leaning towards yes today, but 2 years ago, no. It was not where Dapper was. I think Dapper's evolved quite a bit. And running it as a sidecar also seems like it seems like a pattern that people are doing outside. There seems to be good support for it also. The thing is, let's pitch it if you feel like it's a good idea. And then if there's any strong pushback on it, we'll take a look and see what we would have to build. Like, yeah, I really like the fact that it manages the state for you. But we're using this only for like a high availability scenario, so it doesn't bring in the default case.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what all baggage it brings with it, and if it's worth the effort and the bloat, if it's going to bring that. So I'll continue looking into it. But talking with the Gatekeeper team with their implementation, it seemed like, okay, maybe we should also think about it. So.
Is Gatekeeper interested in bringing Dapper in?
Yes, they are. That's their plan. That's how they'll integrate with the Redis message broker when they're so they're setting up a pub sub model to publish all of their violations to a message broker, and then they can have consumers on the message broker for that. And they wanted to have flexibility for the user to plug in whatever they wanted to use. They'll provide Redis as as their recommended message broker, but it could work with anything.
So this is Redis with Dapper or just direct Redis?
Redis with Dapper.
Okay. what's the value that Dapper is bringing over the Redis over Redis at this point? I don't know enough, so I'm just asking.
So yeah, I just know a little bit more than you on this, but it seems like if you use Dapper, Dapper is kind of like the provider agnostic layer. So you could use different alternatives to Redis. So you could use Memcache, or you could use something else depending on what your scenario is.
Okay.
I don't know what exactly would be the scenario where Redis wouldn't be the number one choice. So I'm not sure why that was enough of a concern for them, but.
Okay, sounds good. I mean, if there's alignment with Gatekeeper, then that's why I said today maybe it's a yes, because of the how things have changed.
So I think for now, it's very preliminary investigation. I'll take a little bit further look into it, but should we just keep the course as is for Ratify's current strategy for HA and Redis usage?
Do you just want to start prototyping with Dapper along the way? Is that what's leading to this conversation?
Yeah, so if we wanted to introduce it, now would be probably the time to introduce it. The other consideration is that the work to introduce Redis has kind of already been done. So I'm still at the point where I'm trying to evaluate, is it really worth the time and effort to go and kind of scrap the direct Redis integration we have and introduce Dapper through that, and how much work that would be. So
on a side note, how is the observability for Dapper over Redis? Like, in the sense, do they actually have direct integration with Prometheus, so you can see connection failures and retries and all that?
they seem to advertise that as well. So there is integration at that level too.
Okay, then if they've hardened it, then maybe it's actually a good thing to consider.
Maybe it's a waste of time.
So sorry, Akash, so basically what we're saying is you're gonna do a brief investigation on Dapper.
Yeah, so I'll take a look at Dapper. I need to understand a little bit more on like what its use cases are exactly and how we can use them in Ratify, and then see how that'll align with our current cache strategy.
I mean, there will be a brief pause because you would be you would be busy with on-call in the next couple of weeks, but
yeah,
it makes sense. Okay. All right. So I guess do we have any other topics we want to cover today?
I wanted to briefly talk about some of the exploration I've been doing for the other side of cert rotation. So I think we had discussed there are actually 3 components to cert rotation. There's the first part, which is the current PR I have out now that is ready for review, which is Ratify's server has to actually pick up the changes in certs according to if the local file storage has changed. The second part is the whole 60 to 90 second delay, and that part still investigating and chatting with Gatekeeper folks on that. And then the third part is introducing a cert manager for the TLS certs, similar to how Gatekeeper has, which will actually be in charge of regenerating certs if they expire, and then also watching for those changes and updating dependent resources, such as the Gatekeeper's external data providers. So Bin and I've been briefly taking a look at that, and I think for this third part, which is the actual cert management portion, I think we should rely on Gatekeeper's sub-project called Cert Controller that they published that can take care of that on the Ratify side of things, similar to how Gatekeeper uses it. So we would need to integrate that as well into Ratify.
So that's pretty awesome. So does Gatekeepers cert manager take care of graceful failover or no?
No, so this is purely at the level of you have a cert stored in a secret, the management of the cert, so that if it expired or if it's been revoked, there's a controller that's running in a tick loop in this cert controller project that is in charge of updating the secret. And if there is a change to it, there's also a watcher on this specific secret to update dependent resources. It's not actually responsible for mounting the cert into Gatekeeper or into any other pod that's using the secret. So that problem is slightly separate.
I see. I think we still need to solve the other one, which seems orthogonal to any design pattern I've seen, right? Like you don't notify your clients after your authentication cert is changed. You notify it before your authentication cert changes. If it's on a cadence, but I can imagine like if it's a compromised cert, then yes, you kind of like do flush it out and authenticate. I mean, you update your cert immediately. But for all of the purposes, it should be graceful. But this is for refreshing the Ratify cert, is what you're saying, like the one that we would use to verify?
Yes. So
Okay.
because we generate our own bundle of TLS certs that we pass to Gatekeeper for the MTLS component of it. So right now, how we do it is user can provide that, or if they don't provide it, the Helm chart automatically runs a script to generate it, but that's static throughout the process. So if that expires, there's no sort of remediation process at all. So this cert controller is to fix that portion. So it manages the certs specifically generated for MTLS on the Ratify side.
So if you don't mind me asking, how does Gatekeeper know the cert that the caller is using for MTLS? What's the rotation path for this one where Ratify would update the cert? It's the same problem in reverse, right?
Yep. Yeah. So the way they do it is that so Gatekeeper, in order to verify Ratify, needs access to the CA cert from Ratify, right? So that CA cert is passed inside the external data provider custom resource definition that they have set up. So that's where we define what the service endpoint for Ratify is. So it's up to when Ratify updates its own CA and then updates its bundle, Ratify needs to not only update the secret, but also update the resource for Gatekeeper. And so that's what this cert controller that Gatekeeper has can do as well. So it'll update that bundle, and then their controller will pick up the change.
So can we have, does it handle multiple CAs or just one? Like say, for example, is it the same problem that when we update the target that Ratify is not able to, there'll be a blip where the certs don't match?
So because they use the bundles provided through their own custom resource, it's almost instantaneous because the controllers watch, the Gatekeeper controller that's watching that specific resources sees that there's a change and it picks up the new cert immediately. So there's no mounting of the cert on the Gatekeeper side.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask us. For us, there is that 60 to 90 second delay between the rotation and when it gets mounted, correct?
Yeah, so it's a result of Gatekeeper putting the cert in a secret that gets, and their recommendation of mounting it. If they had some sort of, like if we had a CR that we were watching that Gatekeeper would be updating, then we could reduce the downtime to almost 0 too, because we could have a watcher that immediately picks up the change. The problem is we don't have that. We could implement our own watcher on that specific secret, and that's probably the only way we can bring down the downtime to almost 0, but there isn't that mechanism provided by Gatekeeper. So
I still find this pattern very best effort, because if you have a large number of replica sets, you might have a time period where certain, I mean, this pattern is more maybe a Gatekeeper question rather than a Ratify question as to why don't we bundle both the certs, right? And there's a graceful rollback of maybe a clock skew, assume maybe a 10 10-minute window or 20-minute window where both the CAs are active, and then you update it saying that only the final CA is active, so that you have a graceful rotation policy for all of these scenarios. Again, this is maybe outside scope of Ratify, so it's okay.
And Gatekeeper doesn't currently support multiple replicas, right? It's a single, or do they?
So they do support multiple.
They do have multiple replicas?
Yeah.
I see.
But they're pretty stateless, right? So it's not a problem.
Yeah, they're stateless. So
okay. So basically, it's basically another area to investigate. A third component of the certificate rotation story. All right. This might be. Yeah.
Sorry, go for it.
No, I was thinking that since you're gonna be busy in the next 2 weeks, it might be also a good opportunity for maybe Bin to help us in this one with this one as well. Can chat more.
Also, we're not the only project that is facing this. I was noticing Cosines is also facing similar issues, so might be worth to collaborate with them too. So
This is for the updated MTLS certs and Gatekeeper side.
yes, yes,
Okay.
the Cosines external data provider project also seems to be having discussion on this. So
Yeah, because when I asked Sertouch who else is suffering, he said it's only us. So it's a good thing that other projects are going through that. It forces a conversation. So cool.
Would you be able to share a link of any discussion that's happened or an issue?
sure, let me send it right now. They actually in the conversation mentioned us as well. They're like, oh, how's Ratify doing this? We should take a look. So
Oh, passing the buck along. Okay.
Yeah.
So they're a little bit earlier stage than us because they actually haven't supported any sort of MTLS. So they're running through even the basic scenario. But here, I just sent the link in the chat.
Yeah, I don't think we'll be able to ship without MTLS, right? So
yeah.
Okay.
this is on the Sigstore repo.
Yes.
No, not on the Gatekeeper repo.
Yeah, this is, I think, their external data provider that they still maintain.
Do you want to open an issue in the Gatekeeper repo?
Yeah, I think that's so I joined the Slack for Gatekeeper, and it seems like it's kind of active, but not super active. So I think an issue is probably better. I'll create the issue and then I'll link the issue on the chat.
Yeah, you can link these two issues, right? Like one that we have and one that Cosine has, and say these are the two reference implementations that probably can benefit from graceful cert rollover.
Sure, sounds good.
So you found this this issue through the Slack channel?
This one, I think it was linked somewhere. Someone had linked this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually don't remember how I came across this. Might have been a Google search trying to see. So
Sounds good. Anything else? All right. So I think that's the end of it. Thanks, everyone.
thank you.
Thanks all. You're going to see more of this being featured in the build calls. Though.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Cool.
Take care. Bye.